Secretary of State Marco Rubio is heading to Mexico and Ecuador later today. His focus, combating illegal immigration and drug cartels. The Latin America trip comes as the Navy increases the number of ships in the region to combat illegal drug smuggling. And News Nation's Joe Khalil live for us at the White House. Joe, Venezuela's leader is accusing the U.S. of pushing regime change, and he is not happy about it.
Yeah, and you can really feel the tension escalating between the leaders, between Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela and the Trump administration. You said Secretary of State Marco Rubio's trip to the region is in part because of this very issue, drug cartels and drugs that are coming into the United States. And obviously, Venezuela is not happy about him being here and being in the region more generally. Right now, we can confirm the Pentagon has 7 warships that are in and around Venezuela and in the Caribbean, at least 2 destroyers and 5 others, which is an increase in just the last couple of days and weeks there. International outlets have been reporting that President Maduro did say that he would constitutionally declare a republic in arms, essentially threatening to put his country on a war footing should the United States strike within the borders of Venezuela. Now, as we mentioned, this is not the United States attacking the Venezuelan government or the country, but this is President Trump's initiative that he put forward really from the beginning of this administration to go after drug cartels as if they were terrorist organizations. And the Pentagon has not ruled out the possibility of strikes inside of certain countries. So that is something that we have seen. If you look here, this is the foreign terrorist designation now for several drug cartels. Earlier in his term, President Trump did sign an executive order that effectively designated all of these as terrorist organizations. And the reason that that is important, once the State Department adopted this as well, is because it does open up legal options for the DOD to take action rather than having action against a drug cartel. The terrorist designation is different. This is what we've gotten from the spokesperson at the Pentagon, Sean Parnell, who is describing the motivation behind this move. And he says here that it requires a whole of government effort. And he says through coordination with regional partners, the DOD is undoubtedly going to play an important role toward meeting the president's objective to eliminate the ability of those cartels to threaten the territory, safety, and security of the United States and its people. So it is obviously not making President Maduro happy that Secretary Rubio is in the region. He's not in Venezuela. He'll be in Ecuador and Mexico. Nonetheless, the issue is certainly on the table for the secretary.
All right, and Joe, we are set to hear directly from President Trump. That is scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern. There is a lot the administration is dealing with right now that Congress is back from its August recess.
Yeah, President Trump has a lot on his plate beginning now, and there are a lot of deadlines coming up. Today, we do expect that he is going to make some kind of announcement about Space Command moving its headquarters from Colorado back to Alabama, which is where it was not so long ago. And that is going to be a big move because that's going to require resources shifting across the country. In addition to that, remember, President Trump also set a deadline for Vladimir Putin to come to the table and negotiate with President Zelensky and Ukraine. That deadline was yesterday, so it has now come and passed. There are going to be questions to the White House about what comes next as the conflict is ongoing, and a lot of diplomatic questions in the effort there. You mentioned Congress is back now. There is a looming government shutdown deadline of September 30th. That is going to be a major question. How involved directly is President Trump going to be in those discussions, or does he delegate that to just Republican leaders negotiating with Democratic leaders on Capitol Hill? It is always an important question. And lastly, looming over all of this is going to be the Epstein investigation and whether the White House gets involved directly in that. There's a lot of movement on Capitol Hill there as well. That's going to be a question that this White House will have to contend with.
Absolutely. All right, Joe Khalil live there in D.C. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.